You are listening to Happy Families with Principal Lisa, only on 102 Pearl FM, the number one fun station in the UAE.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today for Happy Families with Principal Lisa. I'm Lisa and I will be with you for the next hour. Keep in contact throughout the show today. Share your views and your ideas via @PearlFM UAE. Now, today's topic links with a new government ruling on healthy eating for children in schools. Well, what should schools and families be doing? What are the rules? And how can we keep the children healthy? Join me after a short break. Keep it at Pearl, the number one fun station in the UAE.
You are tuned into Happy Families with Principal Lisa, only on 102 Pearl FM, the number one fun station in the UAE.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today for Happy Families with Principal Lisa. I'm Lisa and I will be with you for the next hour. Now, just recently, the UAE government announced that a list of 8 foods would be banned from all UAE schools. This is a fantastic step towards creating a healthy start for our children, as children are at schools and nurseries for about 6 to 8 hours a day. Type of foods that have been banned are processed meat, instant noodle, chocolate bars, sweets, chips, cakes, etc. But how do we create those healthy eating habits at home? When should we start? What can we do as parents and carers of young children? And what if some bad habits have already started? Is it too late to make those changes? So join me after the break, because I'm here in the studio today with children's nutritionist and chef Kanika from Leela's Lunches, and we're going to gather some tips, some solutions, and we'll leave the show today with something we can really try out at home. Join me after a short break. Keep it at Pearl, the number one fun station in the UAE.
You are listening to Happy Families with Principal Lisa, only on 102 Pearl FM, the number one fun station in the UAE.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to Happy Families with Principal Lisa. I'm Lisa and I'm going to be with you for the next hour. We're talking about healthy eating with children. And as parents, we want the best start, don't we, for our children? But also as educators, we also feel the same. And as a principal of my own nursery, we're looking always at how we can support families to enable the children to have healthy eating habits. So I'm joined today by children's nutritionist and chef Kanika from Leela's Lunches. Hi, Kanika. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here.
Bless you. Hi, Kanika. Can you tell me about why you started Leela's Lunches and how that works and what you offer families in the UAE?
Well, actually, Lisa, till my daughter Leela, who I named the company after, went to nursery, she was fuss-free. She ate all of this organic, freshly prepared, unprocessed food that I used to make for her. But when she moved to nursery, I realized that actually that's not enough of a grounding that I should have given her in order to make healthy choices outside, and particularly at nursery. I remember this one occasion where I got a note from her teacher saying, "Could you please pack Oreo cookies for Leela?" Because she used to steal the cookies off her friend's plate every lunch break. So clearly, there was not a single healthy eating policy at the nursery. And of course, things have definitely moved on since then. But this really made me see the importance of properly nurturing that developing palate of young children towards real foods, towards freshly prepared home-cooked foods, and to give them the building blocks really for a full, energetic life.
So you set up Leela's Lunches, which is obviously named after your daughter Leela, based on the idea that you were working really hard at home as a mum, making sure that Leela had everything that was right for her, but then she was going off to school into nursery, but those values and that practice of healthy eating wasn't happening in the schools and the nurseries. Is that what you're saying?
It's true. And I understand that, we live in this amazing multicultural society, which is, on another level to most places in the world. And of course, every place has its own idea of what is home-cooked food, what is healthy food, how important is health in terms of childhood experiences. But we at Leela's Lunches were really clear that we wanted to flesh out a clear program with specific health philosophies to support children as they make those initial explorations into real food and how to make the right choices throughout their lives.
So Kanika, what is it that Leela's Lunches is able to offer? So busy working parents, I've been one myself. My children are now grown up, but I've been in that position where you're so busy. What is it that Leela's Lunches can do to help that healthy eating practice continue after they've left the home and gone to school?
So at Leela's Lunches, we were really clear that there should never be a compromise between health and convenience. So of course we offer freshly prepared meals. Everything is made the same day and it's delivered just in time. It's hot, it's temperature controlled, and it's made with the best possible ingredients, organic, and so on. But more than that, it's about the community of this kind of family-style eating. I think that's what we're really about, and that's what sets us apart from other catering companies, so to speak, is because we're really focused on the psychology of childhood eating and how to get them to understand this eating as a shared experience. So for us, we're not just about balancing a meal in terms of nutrients, but also the kind of values that come from making this a learning activity. And that's what Leela's Lunches is really about.
So why do you think the government have banned these 8 foods? Do you think obesity is a greater issue than we realise in the UAE?
Lisa, actually, I don't really like the word obesity just because it kind of relates to body shaming or body image issues, but I understand that we need to use that term in the relation of a context of health. So having said that, children with obesity are prone to numerous medical problems, such as heart disease and hypertension, stroke, diabetes, metabolic syndrome. They've got higher incidences of sleep apnea and asthma, gastrointestinal problems, certain cancers. The problem is that as it stands, the GCC region actually has the second highest prevalence of many of these problems in the world.
I read that actually, and have double the rate of childhood obesity. In fact, it's even higher than the US. And also the highest levels of vitamin D deficiency. And I know that with your meals, because you serve your meals in my nursery, and I know that there's so many hidden vegetables that if we could be giving more vegetables to children in schools, perhaps those levels of vitamin D deficiency also might improve. What do you think?
So basically, my job is to obsess over making sure that every meal is nutrient-packed, because I know there's fussy kids out there, they're just going to want to have a few bites, and then beyond that, they say, that's it. So respecting that, I want to make sure that every bite that they have is full of nutrients. There are, however, some nutrients that I cannot include. Fermented foods is one that I wish that I could include more of, but apart from yogurt, which does have a lot of different strands of positive bacteria that's good for gut health, there are other kinds of fermented foods that exist in all our cultures in terms of pickled vegetables, anything that's oil-free pickling like sauerkraut or Arabic-style pickled vegetables. This is something that I wish that I could include.
But not all children are going to want to eat that type of food. And so, when we were off air, we were talking about how to develop those early taste buds for these type of things. And, and for mums and dads that are listening today who've got very small children, perhaps they can make that start. But what would you say to a parent who might say to you, well, they're only children, let them enjoy it, let them have some nice sweets, they've been really good, and maybe they can go on a diet and be healthy later on, but now life is about having fun. What would you say to someone that was thinking along those lines?
See, of course we want children to enjoy their lives now and later after we're gone. But at Leela's Lunches, our premise is that eating real food is enjoyable. Sure, we serve whole vegetables, but we also hide vegetables, as you were mentioning earlier, in every meal, just to make sure that we don't turn off potentially fussy eaters, at least initially. But overall, we want children to get used to that taste of fresh, home-prepared food and away from that hyper-saturated, chemically enhanced product line that exists in supermarkets and comes in kids' menus at restaurants. I mean, that our food isn't a diet. That's just real food. That's what we offer. And the problem is that you can't wait till later to introduce real food because children's cells are developing right now. It's imperative they have it right now.
I mean, listening to you, it would inspire me, if I was listening to this, to rush home and try and make something really great for my children. But as what can we do if we're not a great cook? What if my child's nursery or school aren't implementing a healthy eating programme? What should I do? Look, let's discuss this a bit more after a short break. Keep it at Pearl, the #1 fun station in the UAE.
You are tuned into Happy Families with Principal Lisa, only on 102 Pearl FM, the #1 fun station in the UAE.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to Happy Families with Principal Lisa, and I'm Lisa, and I'm joined on the show today by Kanika from Leela's Lunches, a children's nutritionist and chef. Thanks for staying with me and keeping me company at Pearl. Kanika, before we went to a break, we mentioned about the vitamin D deficiency that there is in the UAE. In fact, I was reading before the show that 80% of people in the UAE are vitamin D deficient. So I know this is something that's quite important to you. What advice could you give to us today?
So, first of all, let's just take a minute to appreciate how ironic it is that we have vitamin D deficiency in this country where we basically live in Sunshine Central. But the problem here is that, sure, there's foods that are enriched with vitamin D, but you don't actually absorb that much vitamin D from the food that you have. So the best sure shot way of getting your vitamin D fix is being outdoors in the morning, particularly if you're barefoot. Mother Nature and the sunshine is all you need to up your dose of vitamin D every day. So really there's this, although I'm a chef and I wish that I could say, I have this magic pill and I can just include it in the food, this is one of those nutrients that you don't actually get that much of from food.
So Kanika, you're not only a chef providing, I think we were talking about it, almost 1,000 meals a day for children in schools in Dubai, but you are also mum to Frank and Leela. And I know Frank very well as he's a little boy in our nursery and he is a fantastic little eater. So, for those of us who are listening today, how can we also achieve having a child who is a fantastic little eater? And what can mums and dads do at home who are listening to try and create that type of eater?
Lisa, one thing that you and I definitely agree on is to take the emotions out of mealtime.
Yes, keep calm.
Yeah, so that's my #1 tip as well, is to keep calm. Generally, the more parents will worry or try to gently coax or cajole or demand, the worse it gets. The second thing I would say is, I don't know if you've had a chance to read Ellen Satter's Division of Responsibility.
No, I haven't.
So she's the incredible founder of the Ellen Satter Institute, and her technique really works best with fussy children or those that have restricted palates. What she says is that mealtime responsibilities are very clearly defined. If you're an adult, a carer, parent, you take responsibility for the what, the when, and the where of the feeding. And so basically you choose what to buy, you plan and prepare regular meals, and serve food in a designated space. Within these parameters, the children are responsible for how much and the weather of eating. Now, this is really controversial, I know.
So the weather of eating, what do you mean?
So basically what that means is that they can decide not to eat, or they could decide to eat only certain foods at one time, or to eat everything and ask for seconds. And we need to trust them with that.
Now, in our nursery, everybody eats the same. We have Leela's lunches in our nursery. And so everybody sits down together. They sit down with the teacher and they help themselves. They can use the serving spoon and put some on their plate, or they're deciding how much sometimes to put on their plate. Is that the level of responsibility that you're talking about, that they're taking ownership, they're taking charge?
Absolutely. In fact, I really marvel at your nursery, Kangaroo Kids. You just have this community approach to everything, don't you? So it just made sense for Leela's lunches to just slot right into that, because we really believe in community-style eating. And at your nursery, I'm sure you've seen some really big wins in terms of fussy eaters that are now chugging down broccoli and brown rice, for instance. And it's all
But it didn't start like that, though, did it? You know, in the beginning, some of the children found some of the things that we were introducing a little tricky, like, for example, your butternut squash lasagna that had the spinach in. You know, to begin with, they were picking out the spinach, but now they love it. And in fact, we've named it bumblebee pie. I don't know why, but, you know, they all eat it. Now, but mealtimes are very messy and they're very social. How can families make mealtimes social and messy at home?
Certainly, that is extremely important for mealtimes to be social and messy, but they also need to be structured, which is a wonderful balance that I've seen at your nursery. So in terms of structure, for young children, you want to feed them something every 2 to 3 hours, and outside of that time, the kitchen is closed. This is really difficult for a lot of parents to adhere to, but that needs to happen because all these backup meals and...
Do you feel that sometimes parents, you know, maybe somebody listening today, you know, feels like they want to give their child choice, because often mums and dads, we worry that, are they eating enough?
Certainly. If you're worried that your child might be missing out on nutrients, then the first most important thing is you need to become familiar with the main food groups. And you try to make sure that they are eating something from each group in each meal. If they don't eat veggies, then do the Leela's lunches trick and just try pureeing them into the pasta sauce. Basically, work with what they will eat and you try to build from that. At the same time, you need to keep at it. I'm sure your teachers know this.
Exactly, is that the first time we offer something to a child, it might not be a win. It's no drama. We just keep calm. We just, you know, we don't really even pay much attention to it. But we have the wonderful benefit of that all the other children are eating it. And so somebody new to the nursery ends up eating the food because they see their friends eating it, which works, you know, beautifully for us. Anyway, I think we'll take a short break and we'll come back in a moment, Kanika. So stay listening. We want to hear some more of her fantastic tips for us very, very busy mums who are rushing around trying to get to work and at home. So thanks for staying with us. Keep it at 102 Pearl FM, the number one fun station in the UAE. We'll be back in a moment.
You are listening to Happy Families with Principal Lisa, only on 102 Pearl FM, the number one fun station in the UAE.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to Happy Families with Principal Lisa. And I'm Lisa, and I'm here today with Kanika from Leela's Lunches. And we've been discussing at great length healthy eating for children. So thanks for staying with me. How important do you think it is, Kanika, that we as adults should also set a good example to our children? What are your thoughts on that kind of role model element of healthy eating?
I mean, exactly. Monkey see, monkey do, right? We know that we are the role models in our children's lives. And not only do we model good behavior and good values, but it's really also incumbent upon us to model a healthy lifestyle, which includes home cooking, real foods, and daily movement. If we make this a part of the daily routine for our children in their formative years, then when they grow up and move on to their own home life and family life, home cooking and regular exercise become their norm. That is the blueprint for good health.
And it's an interesting one because often as teachers, we are very busy. And if I think about myself as an early younger teacher before I became a principal, I remember one little boy saying to me, in the UK, you're called by your surname. So I was Mrs. Sherrington Sherrington Boyd, and I remember him saying, "Mrs. Sherrington Boyd, why are you allowed to eat biscuits and we are not?" Because he saw on my teacher's desk that there was a pack of biscuits. And in fact, I remember then thinking, actually, I'm not being a great role model here.
Absolutely.
By snacking all the time because I'm busy. I need to make time to eat. And in our nursery now, the teachers eat with the children, and that's been a great success. Do you think that at home, what do you do as a parent if you yourself don't like broccoli, but you want your child to eat broccoli? What should we do, Kanika?
It's amazing how much power we have as trusted adults, as teachers, as carers, as parents. Children will mimic us. So we're kind of always on display, which is exhausting, but it's also an amazing responsibility that we kind of signed up for, really. In terms of school, of course, including teachers and TAs sitting and eating the same meal with the children, it's just magic, isn't it? You've seen that at your own nursery. This greatly improves the success of our food program, particularly for fussy children. But if you are, I actually think that the way having a child makes us want to be better people. Certainly, that's part of being a better human being, is to kind of get more involved in home cooking and real foods and take more time to actually understand what makes a healthy upbringing. One book that I would really recommend is First Taste, How We Eat. It's by the award-winning food writer B. Wilson. And I really think that this book was the difference between Leela's first tastes, which, she grew up to be quite a fussy child.
For those people listening to the show today who may have just joined our show, Kanika has 2 children, Leela and little Frank. And you often talk about that perhaps you didn't always get things quite right with your first child, Leela, but that with Frank, you were able to maybe make some changes that brought about a more confident and more kind of foodie, as a little boy. So what do you think that you did differently with Frank that perhaps you didn't do with your first child? And what kind of weaning approach did you take?
So I'm a big proponent of baby-led weaning. And what that basically means is that you give your baby a safe and fun environment to start exploring the different tastes and textures and colors at mealtime. So this does involve a lot of safe, soft, handheld solids, but it does not mean no purees. Swallow experts, in fact, say yes to occasional purees or even frequent purees because it helps baby to learn to swallow intentionally. I think with a lot of mums, the first time you give them solids in solid form, it's alarming because the baby will have this gag reflex and you think, oh my goodness, is my baby choking?
So do you feel that you were more confident, obviously with, for mums at home, I'm one of those too. Certainly, I've got 3 children, but by the time the second and the third child came along, I was full of confidence as a mum. Do you think that's what you're talking about here, that the second time you weaned, you felt more able to introduce more?
I did, but also I felt I was better guided by my own previous experience and also by this book that I was mentioning earlier, First Taste. So the gagging reflex that I was talking about, it's because baby doesn't know how to propel anything other than liquids, of course. And purees are kind of thickened liquids and therefore is a great introduction for baby to start intentionally swallowing. And then slowly you get to increase more texture. But don't just go with purees. They need to have that experience of experimenting with soft handheld solids as well.
And we were talking a little bit in the break about how you feel that just giving a little taste on the tip of a child's tongue, maybe at kind of 4 or 5 months, introducing a wide range of different tastes and flavours to children so that they become kind of more brave and more adventurous.
Absolutely. Although conventional wisdom dictates 6 months as when you should start solids, experts now are starting to believe that the flavour window for babies' palates actually opens between 4 and 7 months. And so this is really a golden period where babies are most open to trying new flavours. And, for mums, my advice is have fun with this time. But there are a few guidelines to help you along. So you probably don't want to start with sweet fruit or starchy vegetables because...
But actually, that's what, I know in our nursery that you often want to go in with that. A favourite one is often sweet potato.
Absolutely. But the thing is, most people will love sweet potato, right? So you don't want to waste this precious window on stuff that is universally palatable.
That the children are already
going to
going
eat
to quite
anyway.
like.
Yeah. I would try more challenging vegetable flavors like beetroot or broccoli or Brussels sprouts. Be creative. Your child has no judgment.
I mean, be creative. I mean, your foods that you come up with at Leela's Lunches really are very creative. For those of you at home who haven't tasted Kanika's pizza, let me just set your thoughts wild, really. If you imagine 8 different vegetables pureed into kind of a pizza sauce and put on a nice kind of freshly made piece of pizza, it's an absolute taste sensation. And as teachers, we're always hoping that there's some left over.
Oh, thank you.
But we're going to have to wrap things up a little, Kanika. But if you were just going to, for our listeners at home, if you could just give us 3 top tips really quickly, what would they be for someone who perhaps there might have been some bad habits that started to come in? What could they do differently now?
Well, first of all, that old adage, don't play with food?
Yes.
Yeah, forget about it. Just forget about it. Just let them. It's really important for babies to have fun with food, from using vegetables as paintbrushes to helping you cook in the kitchen. There's this book I'm reading at the moment called Adventures in Veggieland by Melanie Potok, and there is some vegetables, there's some recipes for kids to make, but most of the book is just messy play because you want to take away the fear factor. So your first tip would be
get the children involved, get messy, make it fun. What would be your second tip?
Please eat together as a family.
Yes.
It's correlated to better academic performance, better relationships. When your child becomes older, gets married, has his or her own family, it's related to better happiness.
But it's actually interesting you've mentioned that, because next week, my own family are going to come and join me on the show, which is going to be quite funny. And we're going to talk about family traditions. And one of those is that families that eat together stay together, and family, food is a big thing in my family. So I agree with you. I think eating together is important, and we do that. We eat with the children as well in our nursery. What would your third tip be as we finish?
I understand that it's tempting to make use of technology in some way to get kids to eat more, but just don't.
Do you mean like having an iPad at the table?
Yes, and of course kids will eat more when they're thinking about something else and not really respecting their food, but that's not what we want to teach them in the long run. So,
oh, bless you. Thank you so much for coming in and joining us in the studio, and for our listeners at home. It's been great to have a cup of tea with you today and chat through some of these really important issues for families. I hope you'll all join me again next week, where I will be joined, as I said, by my own family, and we'll be discussing, family traditions like it takes a village to raise a child. And so I'm going to look forward to seeing everybody again next week. So we'll discuss this and more over the coming weeks. So I just want to say thank you so much, Kanika, from Leela's Lunches. What a great chef and nutritionist you are.
Bless you. Thank you.
Yes. And thank you. And best wishes to you at home. Thank you for tuning in. 102 Pearl FM, the #1 fun station in the UAE.
You are tuned into Happy Families with Principal Lisa, only on 102 Pearl FM, the #1 fun station in the UAE.